بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. So two parts of the book are really left. There's a part of the book called Colonialism. For those that haven't heard, they were reading a book called an-Nahdah, and a part of the weekly discussions are based around the book. Colonialism is one part, and then the correct path towards revival is the ending of the book. Right, so we've gone through everything else. We started at the problem of perpetual crisis of the ummah. We've talked about the enlightened thought that we need to, inculcate within ourselves in order to work towards revival. All of that. So, colonialism. Let's talk about this. Right, I could share my screen, but to be honest, I want to get a little bit of your thoughts as well. Where will you keep the recordings? It'll be posted on my second channel. So there's a tab over here called book club recordings on the Discord. It's like just a bit under announcements. And yeah, over there you'll find the recordings, and it's posted on my second channel. Though it's like a bit of a spam channel, I guess, or yeah. Okay. So colonialism, what does it mean? The idea of colonization. It is when one nation or state turns another into a colony, right? A colony is one that works without vested interest in itself. It works for the interests of something else. Taking over some lands and turning it into your own, pretty much. And it's something that we've dealing with, and I've probably mentioned this before. The Prophet ﷺ and the Sahaba never dealt with colonialism, right? Why is that? It's because nobody took over Arabia. Did the Persians ever try to take over Arabia? No. Romans, did they ever try to take over Arabia? No. The reasons are many, according to historians. Lack of resources in Arabia, difficult weather, terrain. It's not worth it. So Arabia was never conquered. It had its own tribes, its own people doing their own thing. So now because of colonialism, we have to account for a new reality that isn't there in the seerah. Isn't that true? Like when we're talking about revival, when we're talking about establishing Islam, we try to analyze the seerah and see how the Prophet ﷺ did that. But now we've got a new reality. There's a few more, but this is one of them: colonialism. However, it's not like we don't have guidance on this. Who is the Prophet that dealt with colonialism? Let's see if you guys can pick this one out. The Prophet ﷺ might have not done it, but there's Prophet. Musa alayhi salam. Isa alayhi salam. True, actually. True. Isa alayhi salam. The Ummah of Bani Israel in general, right? Musa alayhi salam. Musa alayhi salam's stories are vivid in the Quran when it comes to colonialism. What do we know about the story of Musa alayhi salam when it comes to colonialism? Isa alayhi salam, like the Romans. Yeah, the Romans did take over, and so there was a sense of colonialism. But the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he's talking about colonialism, he brings the story of Musa alayhi salam instead of Isa alayhi salam. These people were subjugated by Fir'aun. Yes, that's exactly what it is. So Bani Israel were colonized by people that came in from the north. They took over Egypt. The Bani Israel was enslaved, and Musa alayhi salam comes with the mission to free them. Musa alayhi salam, according to I think this is Tafsir al-Tabari, Musa alayhi salam spends 40 years in Egypt doing da'wah. 40 years. It goes to show how much groundwork is really required a lot of the time we can be pretty hasty, but uh, we hear the flashy stories, the Musa alayhi salam throwing his staff down, and there's magicians battling against him, and we hear these stories and we think, oh man, it was so exciting to be there. It was miracle after miracle after miracle. The white hand, the plague, and the frogs, and the blood, and the lice all coming after another. And Musa alayhi salam makes dua, and Allah lifts it from the people. I mean, this is such an exciting time. The reality is, this happened through a long period of time. It was a long period of time that Musa alayhi salam was with his people. So they would struggle for maybe a decade, maybe even 2 decades. Allah wouldn't send a sign. He wouldn't send some miracle for them to deal with, perhaps. Allahu a'lam. But Musa alayhi salam ends up after 40 years being able to free them. And Bani Israel sees every single miracle you can imagine. They see the staff of Musa alayhi salam turn to a serpent. Also in Tafsir al-Tabari, when he's battling the magicians, it's narrated he battled 70,000 magicians. 70,000. That's a crazy number. And of course, the staff of Musa alayhi salam thrown turns into a serpent that swallows all of theirs. And so you can imagine how giant that serpent is. It's not like it turns into a little snake like you see in these unfortunately blasphemous movies. It's not a little snake. The staff of Musa alayhi salam doesn't do that. It turns into a giant serpent. That would be more accurate. Bani Israel sees it. They see the glowing hand of Musa alayhi salam. Bani Israel see each one of the 7 plagues that were sent to Egypt. Bani Israel was local to Egypt, no? Yeah. Like when we say local to Egypt, we need to understand the lineage of how Ibrahim alayhi salam moved around with Yaqub alayhi salam. Right? Ishaq alayhi salam, Yaqub alayhi salam, they were all alive together. Ibrahim alayhi salam, Ishaq alayhi salam, Yaqub alayhi salam, Ismail alayhi salam was somewhere else. And they moved a lot. It's not clear. We don't know when and where, how much they moved, when they moved, why they moved. 1 second, I'm getting a call. Okay, or not. That's why I say Bani Israel, like if you're tracing the lineage, we don't, what do we mean by local to Egypt is what I'm saying pretty much. So I'm not sure, actually. What is clear, Bani Israel was established there before Pharaoh came. Before the pharaohs came, yeah. That much we know. But now Musa alayhi salam, he shows all of these signs to Bani Israel. And they flee. And you can imagine, then how can you say it was like colonial? No, it was colonial. Let me show you what the name of the pharaohs were before. Ancient. Was it the Nubians? I think their name was. Pharisees, I think their name was. Where did I read this? Okay, apparently this could be the sources are kind of contradictory. Like we know what do you call it? The brothers of Yusuf alayhi salam, or the children of Israel of Yaqub alayhi salam, they migrated to Egypt because of the famine, right? Yusuf alayhi salam says, "Innaka al-yawma ladayna makinun amin." Doesn't colonialism refer to foreign control? Not necessarily. Whatever that foreign power is, they can settle in your land. They don't have to control from a distance in colonialism. So I can imagine this is maybe a bit more of a vaguer part of history, where there's no 100% answer on how the pharaohs came into Egypt and colonized them. But somewhere between Yusuf alayhi salam and Musa alayhi salam, the population changed, or the people in power changed, and Bani Israel became an enslaved population. But yeah, it still holds true that it was colonization. Settler colonialism, like the people of the Zionist entity. Yeah, exactly. So it's not necessarily controlled from a foreign position. Believe it or not, the Bible is serving as historical evidence over here, which is why I'm saying this not very well cemented on the process of enslavement for Bani Israel. But picking up in where we left off, Musa alayhi salam is fleeing with Bani Israel, and they reach the Red Sea, and everybody's panicking. Right? We have once again, according to historical narrations, around 300 to 600,000. Huge wave of Bani Israel. The army of Fir'aun is numbered to be 1 million. And you can imagine the thumping poof, poof, of the horses and camels as they're coming closer and closer to Bani Israel. And they're all questioning Musa alayhi salam. What have you done to us? You've killed us. Our life was so amazing back in Egypt. We could wake up in the morning, we could eat food after working an 8-hour shift or something, and now we're all gonna die. And Musa alayhi salam says, "Inna ma'iya Rabbi sayahdin." Allah, my Lord is with me and He will guide me. So even Musa alayhi salam didn't know, which once again it shows an importance in tawakkul. We often imagine everything needs to be planned by us beforehand. Analysis is required to our utmost capabilities, but you'll never be able to account for the variables at play. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands Musa alayhi salam to take Bani Israel and flee. And He goes with them all the way to the Red Sea. And even Musa alayhi salam doesn't know what's the next step. So he just sits there. And then Allah reveals to him to take the staff, strike the sea, and Bani Israel sees the splitting of the Red Sea. كَالطَّوْدِ الْعَظِيمِ, described in the Quran, 2 giant mountains. And they walk through it. And the army of Fir'aun drowns. And now they leave Egypt and they go to Asham. Travel up north. And now we have in Surah Al-Ma'idah the core lesson about colonialism. Musa alayhi salam tells Bani Israel, كتب الله لكم ولا ترتدوا على أدباركم فتنقلبوا خاسرين. يا قوم ادخلوا الأرض. He says, يا قوم, my people, ادخلوا الأرض المقدسة التي كتب الله لكم ولا ترتدوا على أدباركم فتنقلبوا خاسرين. O my people, O Bani Israel, enter this land that Allah has made an obligation upon you. كتب الله لكم, it's fard for you to enter this land. ولا ترتدوا على أدباركم فتنقلبوا خاسرين, and do not turn back unless you want to become from the losers. What was this command for? To just go inside and have a seat, drink some tea? No. The command to enter the promised land was one of establishing the laws of Allah. Musa alayhi salam was being revealed the Torah. And so, Bani Israel, well, they have an option now. We have to now enter Palestine and establish Islam. I'm talking about like linguistically speaking, I guess, at the time. And what was their response? قالوا يا موسى إن فيها قوما جبارين. Oh Musa, there's a very powerful people in there. وإنا لن ندخلها حتى يخرجوا منها. And we're not going to enter Jerusalem until they leave. We're not going to enter Palestine until they leave. فإن يخرجوا منها فإنا داخلون. But if they leave, we're going to enter. I mean, look how crazy this is. Would any of us, after seeing all of the miracles that Bani Israel saw, straight up disobey Allah? Allah gives a fardiyah and you're like, I'm not going to do this. It's very difficult to, maybe some of us can imagine now because of colonialism, but Bani Israel in general, we're talking, it wasn't 10 people, it wasn't 100 people. There was a big fitna that took place between them where a majority, them collectively, categorically respond like this. And it's also true that they're playing with the deen of Allah. They didn't say that we're not going to enter. It's not like they're straight up disobeying Allah in their minds. They say, إِنَّا لَن نَدْخُلَهَا حَتَّى يَخْرُجُوا مِنْهَا فَإِنْ يَخْرُجُوا مِنْهَا فَإِنَّا دَاخِلُونَ. We'll enter. We're not disobeying the fardiyah over here. We're going to enter. But we'll do it after they leave. After this Qawm and Jabbar leave. These tyrannical and powerful people leave. After they leave, then we'll enter. And then they say, oh Musa, go, you and your brother go fight with, and you have the power of Allah with you. We'll stand by and watch. They even say that. Cowardice. Cowardice. They're physically freed from Fir'aun. They have no reason to fear. But they're mentally still subjugated. They're thinking, we just came from an oppressive land of a powerful tyrant. And you're telling us to go back into an oppressive land with a powerful tyrant? Nah. Mentally subjugated. That's their response. Understand this fundamental premise over here about colonialism. The disease that breeds in the hearts and minds of people due to colonialism is cowardice. Colonialism is marked by the subject's imitation and reverence of the colonizer. As what's his name? Ibn Khaldun says in his Al-Muqaddimah, when the colonized population loses, they attribute their insignia to the colonizer and they begin imitating the colonizer like they were on the winning team. They're embarrassed of their own identity. So they start talking the language of their colonizer, they start dressing like their colonizer, they start thinking like their colonizer. So in their mind they can share that victory as if it wasn't a defeat. And so Bani Israel over here, mentally subjugated. And so their cowardice breeds in their hearts. And they disobey Allah. Today, this is the same disease that exists in the heart of the Muslims. I have a running theory, by the way. There's no way to prove this without an impossible math statistic. But I believe the idea and even the term hikmah, wisdom, is being used more today than ever before. Never before in the history of the ummah was the word hikmah used as much as it is today. Unfortunately, it's under the guise of cowardice all the time. I imagine, this is not in the Quran, but I imagine Bani Israel, when they said we're not going to enter that land, they thought they were being smart. They thought, oh, we're doing things with hikmah. Musa alayhi salam, you're being reckless. Na'udhu billah. You're too hasty, you're being too reckless. We gotta wait. We gotta talk it over with those guys. We gotta wait until they leave. They thought they were being smart. They thought they were playing the long-term game. How many Muslims have the same reaction today? where they ally with the colonizer. I was it, the Grand Mufti of Al-Azhar, Muhammad Abdul, writes in his journals. He has personal journals that was uncovered around the time of his death. He says whenever he's in Egypt with the Muslims, his iman dies. His heart is dead. And when he wants to revive his iman, he makes a trip to Paris. And he spends some time in Paris, and then he comes back to Egypt with a revitalized vision. His heart is awake. His vision is revived. So Muslims say we should normalize Israel because that is hikmah. I mean, a lot of the madkhalis make that argument. Astaghfirullah. Don't boycott. What are you doing with boycotting these companies and stuff like that? Don't you know the Muslims are losing their jobs when you do that? You're harming the ummah. You're not supposed to boycott unless the ruler gives you permission. Stupid stuff like that. Oh yeah, Israel, we should trade with Israel because if we don't trade with Israel, Israel's going to kill more Palestinians. But if we trade with them and we open our airspace for them, then, Israel's going to kill less Palestinians because they're happier with us. What the heck? Astaghfirullah. This wasn't the case, by the way. Muslims in the early 1900s, mid 1900s were different. Look at this story. In India, this is before the partition, they wanted Pakistan to be a separate country. So the Muslims are rallying and stuff like that. The Hindutva Dogra regime of India begins oppressing the Muslims, and this happens in Kashmir. Right? So in Kashmir, the Muslims are beaten, defeated in battle, and taken as war prisoners. And then, as they are taken as war prisoners, the time for Dhuhr comes around, Salatul Dhuhr, and somebody has to get up and do the adhan. But they're in prison and there are guards everywhere. But one courageous individual, and remember, the Muslims aren't hard colonized yet. This is fresh fall of the Ottoman Empire, Uthmani Khilafah. So a person stands up, young individual, and he starts calling the adhan, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. And as soon as he says that, a gunshot fires, and he falls dead. The Dogra regime shot this young person for just saying Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. That's it. And he was shot dead. Now you and I sitting over here, what goes in our head? Oh man, come on, let's do this with hikmah, guys. Let's not do the adhan. It's going to get you killed for nothing. Your life is going to go for waste. And we should instead not pray dhuhr. Or pray dhuhr, like you can technically, you can pray without the physical motions because your life is at stake. So you can pray with your eyes, right? You can actually pray salah with your eyes when your life is under threat like that for standing up and moving and stuff like that. So they could have taken the rukhsa, which wouldn't necessarily be accountable before Allah. But instead, what do? Look at the heart of these people. One person falls after saying Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. A second person stands up, says Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. He gets shot as well. It doesn't stop. A third person gets up. And most of these are all young people. They're like 20s, if maybe 30s. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, gets shot down. Another person stands up. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, gets shot down. Another person stands up. Ashhadu anna Muhammad, gets shot down. Doesn't even finish it. Doesn't even finish the one phrase. So another person stands up. Ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah. And it continues like that until the end of the adhan. And it's marked in history as the day 23 people, 23 young courageous men died just to give the adhan for Dhuhr Salah. Jammu Kashmir. Let me share you the article too, so you can read more detailed story, because I sort of summarized it. 1931. 21 people. I think there's a difference in witness. 21, 23. Where is this courage? Because of colonialism, everybody has breeded cowardice in their hearts. And you talk about establishing Islam, and guess what? They start thinking about ISIS. They start thinking about Al Qaeda. They start thinking about these extremist groups. And they're like, shh, don't talk about Khilafah. Shh, don't talk about the unity of the Muslims. Shh. Don't you know the government's listening to you? What? Your brothers and sisters are being slaughtered across the world. Over 50,000. The death toll in Gaza is over 50,000 now. Millions starving in Yemen to death. Just until a few months ago, your brothers and sisters were being raped and killed in the prisons of Assad. Lit on fire, on camera, uploaded. Muslims in the Uyghur Muslims in China are being force-fed alcohol. And astaghfirullah. And you have this person saying, "Oh no, we don't talk about this stuff because we have to talk about it with hikmah." Yeah, establish Islam in your house first. Establish Islam in your character first. Talking about this big vision about establishing Islam. What's wrong with you? Have some hikmah. What? Astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah. I've heard this stuff myself so many times from community leaders. That's all they want to talk about. Hikmah, hikmah, hikmah. While genocides and mass starvations and rapes and killings are happening on every single day. This is what colonialism does to you. And they're so adamant on the opinion of the kuffar. Oh man, don't do anything that would offend the Western government over here. Make sure you're always being democratic. What is the best response to such people? It's a good question. Honestly, I would take a shock approach to it. I would keep it as real as possible. And I would say word for word what you're telling me right now is what Allah cursed Bani Israel for. كانوا لا يتناهون عن المنكر. لعن الذين كفروا من بني إسرائيل على لسان داود وعيسى بن مريم. كانوا لا يتناهون عن المنكر. The curse is upon Bani Israel from the tongue of Dawood alayhi salam and Sulaiman alayhi salam because they did not forbid evil. So when there's evil happening and I'm standing here forbidding it and you're saying, oh, do it with hikmah, brother, do it with hikmah. You are legit doing what Bani Israel did. Textbook. Oh, sorry, I said Sulaiman alayhi salam, Isa alayhi salam, you're right. So I would tell them to, when are you going to wake up? Like, I would be pretty harsh, but maybe this is from personal experience. I could be wrong. It depends on the person. If they're sincere, you wouldn't do this. You wouldn't offend them like this. You would be more inquisitive. But if they're not sincere, if this is some community leader that is telling you to not talk about establishing Islam, do not talk about the unity of the Muslims, do not talk about Gaza because it's a fitna. If they're telling you this stuff and it's a community leader, you know, if it wasn't the Western, if this happened in the Muslim countries, I would fight the guy. I would slap him across the face. Keep dividing us over ulu and yad until we're all finished. Exactly. So yeah, if they're not sincere, compare them to Bani Israel and tell them, do you not fear Allah? Why are you doing what Bani Israel did? And Allah outcast them from to walk around for 40 years until they died with Musa alayhi salam. You're legit doing inna fiha qawman jabbarin wa inna lan nadkhulaha hatta yakhruju minha fa in yakhruju minha fa inna dakhilun. You're doing the same thing. Oh Musa, there's a strong people in there. We don't want to enter until they leave. But if they leave, then we'll enter. You're doing the same thing. You're saying, oh yeah, khilafa's fard. Yes, we understand the fiqh. We understand that what you're doing is right. But we don't want to talk about it or do it until these people are good with us. These Western governments are allied with us, and we have their opinion. But if they are sincere, then maybe you don't take this stance and you talk to them like your brother or sister and be like, talk to them about how courage is required. It would be haram for us to not talk about establishing Islam, to not be engaged in that, no matter how terrible the circumstances are. لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. Allah does not give a fard that you cannot accomplish. He doesn't enslave you into sin, doom you into sin. So this is something that's possible. It's something the Muslims are capable of doing. And Allah has given us everything. We have all of the resources we need. $800 billion in zakat. We have 5 out of the 7 trade choke points. We have the most valuable natural resource, which is gas. Our populations are booming while the Western populations are going down and down and down. Like when it comes to all of that, the ummah is ready. Somebody just needs to create a spark and utilize all of these resources. And over literally, it can be over 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. We go from nobody into being one of the most powerful forces on earth. So you could motivate somebody towards action if they have this cowardice mentality. Act like we're going to be given a page-long multiple choice exam in the grave of this issue and this issue and this issue. Yeah. These Salafis completely off the mark. 10:44. So if you know what, let's just open this for Q&A. I think I'll stop over there. Courage. Colonialism and courage. Colonialism and cowardice go hand in hand. A colonized powered population has cowardice. This is why the Sahaba, when they heard of the hadith of Shiraratul A'imma, that the worst of your leaders are those whom you curse and they curse you. You hate them and they hate you. The Sahaba's gut reaction was, أَفَلَا نُنَابِذُهُمْ بِالسَّيْفِ? Should we not remove these rulers with our swords? That's the gut reaction of the Sahaba, collectively. They understood it. And you have Fulan coming over here saying, you can't do public inkar of the rulers. You can't even speak up against the rulers publicly. While the Sahaba when they heard about evil rulers, they said, أَفَلَا نُنَابِذُهُمْ بِالسَّيْفِ? Do we not remove them with our swords? Look at the courage of the Sahaba. They weren't colonized. They understood an evil ruler. If we do not remove an evil ruler, then we are accountable for everything that evil ruler does. When they go ahead and make policies that put our relatives into poverty, they put policies that increase the zina rate, and our women, our sisters and our mothers and our daughters are being roped into fahisha. They're not going to stand that. They would rather die than lose their honor. That's the level of courage they had. Because I read the hadith, it destroys the entire multiple arguments. Because the Prophet only said to not fight them as long as they pray. Yes, the hadith goes on, and the Prophet replies no. As long as they establish a prayer. Establishing salah is different from praying. Yeah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, الَّذِينَ إِن مَّكَّنَّاهُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ أَقَامُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَآتُوا الزَّكَاةَ. He says the righteous ones are those who, when we give them authority in the land, they establish salah. Does that make sense to you guys? If we, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, wait, let me pull up the verse. الَّذِينَ إِن مَّكَّنَّاهُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ أَقَامُوا. What do you mean? Those who, when we give them authority in the land, they establish salah. What does authority have to do with salah? They can establish salah without authority, right? Why do they need authority to establish salah? That's a question that anybody should be thinking when they hear this verse. There we go. Even the translations are weird. Remain consistent in prayer. Almost salam is establishing Islam. I just read the, yeah, it says حتى تقيموا الصلاة or something of the sort. حديث شرارة الأئمة. The Prophet قيل يا رسول الله أفلا ننابذهم بصيف فقال لا ما أقاموا فيكم الصلاة. Like, no, until they, as long as they establish the prayer amongst you guys. وإذا رأيتم من ولاتكم شيئا تكرهونه فاكرهوا عمله ولا تنزعوا يدا من طاعة. And if you see something you hate from those in authority, then hate his action and do not remove your hand from his obedience. Here, let me add the reference. 22, 3. There, I put it at the end. There we go. Well, this is a different hadith. Yeah, I wasn't talking about this hadith. This is a different hadith. I'll show you the one I have. One second. All right. Here you go. This is the hadith. By the way, a sure way to create a munafiq in this day and age is to teach a person ilm before you teach them izzah. Understand this. A sure way to create a munafiq in today's day and age is to give ilm before you give izzah. Izzah means honor, respect, courage. That's izzah. Izzah is what you get when you hear the stories of Muhammad Fatih rahimahullah, of Salahuddin al-Ayyubi rahimahullah, of Khalid ibn Walid radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, of the seerah and the leaders in all of Islamic history. When you hear their story, you know that fire you get in your heart, like, I need to wake up, like your testosterone is going crazy, you're waking up, you're like, I need to change the world. That's izzah. When a person doesn't have izzah and you give them ilm, they are going to do the same thing. They're going to justify. That ilm is going to serve the purpose of justifying their complacency. They're going to find loophole arguments as to why we shouldn't be talking about establishing Islam. So always remember, when you're giving da'wah to anybody, whether it's family, whether it's friend, or anybody else, Izzatul Islam qabla fikratul Islam. Always give the honor of Islam before you give them the understanding of Islam. Don't go straight into talking about establishing Islam and the Khilafah and the unity of the Muslims. Start by motivating them and getting their izzah and taqwa up. Give them stories of the leaders of the past, what made the great so great, stuff like that. This in the previous narration, well, there's this really good verse that smashes a lot of this nonsense as well. وجعلتم سقاية الحاج وعمارة المسجد الحرام كمن آمن بالله واليوم الآخر وجاهدوا في سبيل الله. Yeah. Do you pagans consider exactly? Subhanallah. This is a really beautiful verse. Do you think this is the reason that there is focus on the Aqidah debates? What is the reason? I'm not sure if I understand the question. Like colonialism, the Aqidah debates, uh, I don't think so. I don't think they're necessarily linked to colonialism. They could be a symptom. I can imagine people would latch onto tertiary topics when they're colonized because they're too scared to talk about the primary topics. What were the major events and problems that led to the downfall of the Khilafah and led us to where we are? Because we have the case study of Bani Israel in our history, so we don't fall into the same traps. Um, oof, it's a really, really good question. Let me share with you guys. Actually, I think I have this in my library. I'm gonna tag. Oh, yeah, my library. I barely uploaded anything into this. Let me just put this book into this. Rise and Decline of the Muslim World by Dr. Isra Ahmed. All right, so I just posted something in the library. It's a book by Dr. Isra Ahmed. He analyzes the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who said that you will be just like Bani Israel. You'll follow in the footsteps of Bani Israel to the point that if they go into a hole, you will follow them into that hole. So colonialism was almost prophesied by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this entire book sort of answers the question from an epistemological standpoint. The Ummah of Bani Israel had two lows, and our Ummah will also have two lows. Now, when it comes to the more recent events for the downfall of the Khilafah, I did a lecture earlier. It was actually like 12 hours ago. I have the recording of it. I talk about three things. Four, I mean technically, but three primary ones. The foundation of it is the closing of the doors of ijtihad, and pretty much intellectualism was destroyed within the Muslim world from the 5th century Hijri onwards. So we had like 800 years of degradation when it comes to our intellectual capabilities. And that led to three things. which was the Wahhabi and Saud pact in Arabia that inculcated into a Ottoman revolt. So the Khilafah was attacked by the Muslims in Arabia. That's the first thing. The Muslims in Arabia in the mid 1700s attacked the Uthmani Khilafah. Now, like obviously the big battles happened 1800s. It was after Ibn Abdul Wahhab died. Yes, there was a process. It didn't all happen immediately all at once. So that's one thing. The second thing is Egypt. Egypt also fought against the Ottomans. Once again, it wasn't an immediate thing. It was an overall process. But Napoleon Bonaparte in 1798 came into Egypt, hijacked Al-Azhar, put in puppets in place, and ever since then you have a chain of Freemasons that were French agents. Muhammad Ali Basha, Muhammad Abdu, Hassan al-Attar, Rashid Rida, you name it. Jamaluddin al-Afghani. All of these guys were French agents in Egypt. And so Egypt was a French agent state that also fought against the Uthmani Khilafah. So now you have two pieces of the puzzle. The Arabian Muslims and then the Egyptian Muslims. And then there was the Turkish Muslims. This was the Young Turk Revolution in Turkey. And Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, la'natullahi alayh. One of the worst human beings, really. It's going to be with Fir'aun in Jahannam, inshallah. He had no limits to his betrayal. He would literally lie to your face and backstab you. So that was the third piece of the puzzle, which is the revolt led by Mustafa Kemal Ataturk in Turkey. So those three pieces, I believe those three are the biggest pieces. There are other things, yes. You can do a very big deep dive into the history of the fall of the Khilafah, and you'll find many other things that happened. But these three are the biggest reasons why. So I'll send you the recording. I'll DM it to you right now, actually. I have it. There you go. Actually, might as well just put it in my server. Okay, I just put it in the book club. It's not really a book club recording, but I just put it there anyways. Alright, assalamu alaikum, brother Noor. Sorry, that might not, that's brother boring. I forget your actual names. I should start keeping track of this. If there are no questions, we could just call it over here. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك ونشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك.